Hey guys, welcome to another Homelab Series video today. In today's video, we'll be showing you how to install and create a Filestash server. And using Filestash, we will hook it up to an SFTP backend. Filestash does support a lot of other backends such as S3, Backblaze, NFS shares. But we're going to only focus on SFTP backend in this video. But we will probably show in other videos how to do the other ones. So this video is also sponsored by me, myself, and I. So if you enjoy my content or want to sponsor me or send me some free swag, let me know. My email is in the description below. So all right, let's get started, guys. All right, so first thing we want to do is log into our server. So I think 45 is where I want. Yes, Filestash. So the first thing that we will need to do is download Docker. This is another Docker app that we can use. So install Docker CE. So while that installs, we will set up a DNS for this so that we can go through it via the DNS name. So edit in web ID. Let it load. We'll make sure we update the serial number and then add Filestash in and 176.145. So we will commit that Filestash to our DNS, and we should be set for DNS. So what we'll want to do is go to Filestash GitHub. So essentially, this is kind of a modern web client that you can hook up to your SFTP server, or any kind of file system backend, and then essentially you have a web GUI to access it, access everything on the backend, so you can edit files in there, upload, delete files, without needing to actually know how that backend works. So it's super nice when you're trying to just connect and do some like file manipulation, but it's pretty simple. It's just pretty much a kind of a login screenshot here, as you can see. You essentially select your host or select whatever you need to do, log in, and then you got the full GUI. So what we'll actually do is actually follow the Docker Compose version here. So we will essentially go and install Docker Compose also. So let's do enable Docker and start Docker, and then we'll get the Docker Compose file from the GitHub repository, and then we'll make sure it is executable. So from there, we will create a Docker Compose file and copy the contents that are in here into this file. Oh, dang it. I didn't insert, and then paste. So we're going to ignore the only office stuff here. We don't really care about that. And we deleted too many things. All right. Back one more time. All right. So we don't care about the only office stuff. We're going to try to do as simple of an install as we can here. So don't have to worry about all these extra environment variables. And we're essentially going to install it and let it run on 8334. So we'll save that. We'll do a Docker Compose up and detach. While we wait for that to pull, we will actually go and at ca.dragon.local create a cert, because if you're gonna do stuff in the backend, you're gonna put in credentials. You want to do it in HTTPS, not HTTP. So we will create a cert, Filestash, so that we can protect it via SSL. Change Filestash. Step CA certificate filestash.dragon.local filestash.dragon.local.cert, and then filestash.dragon.local.key. I think it's the key before. Okay, give me a second. It's been a little bit since I've done this. History grep certificate. Yeah, cert and then key. Okay, so I was right. And then it'll prompt for the password. So let's go to our Vault Warden server here real quick. grab our CA password, paste that there, and we're good. So now we'll copy the keys, the key in the cert, over to our server. And then we are good with this server. Next, we will go back in here, we'll install Nginx. So we can essentially proxy Nginx over to the server. So when I hit like HTTPS on the server, it'll just proxy through into the application on the app. So now that we have that installed, what we'll do is make the directory pki nginx and private. We will move the cert to etc pki nginx, and we'll move the key to etc pki nginx private. Okay, from there, we will edit the Nginx configuration, and we will uncomment the 443 SSL pod for TLS. So uncomment all these here real quick. And then the top part is a comment. We'll update the certificate here. So we'll set this as filestash.dragon.local.cert, and update the key to be filestash.dragon.local.key. Then we need to set up the proxy pass here. 234 proxy pass, and HTTP localhost 8334 is what it's running on. And then don't forget the semicolon. So then we can save that. We can do a systemctl restart Nginx, and it should come back totally fine. From there, we can go to HTTPS, not Nginx, filestash.dragon.local here. And here, now it will prompt me to set up a password for this instance. And then everything should appear and setup's good. So I got SSL, that's configured. Application is running as Filestash, Emacs is installed, PDF2 text is also installed too. Now the interesting thing here is actually in the settings. So in the host, it's going to use the actual host name, but we actually need to set this to localhost 8334, because what ends up happening is, because we're using Nginx to reverse proxy into this app, it will actually see it essentially make the connection on localhost 8334 hitting it, as opposed to, because Nginx is hitting it, as opposed to this web URL. So there is like some security thing that essentially if the host name doesn't match from where it sees it coming from, it essentially won't let you connect. And that was a really fun issue that I found. So if you're using how I just did Nginx, you'll have to update this. But if you're like just hitting it directly and you don't set up TLS and stuff like that, leaving it as like the actual host name that you originally had is totally fine. So, but there wasn't a save button. That was it. Okay, so now you essentially get to a page where you can pick which things you want. So in this case, we're going to do SFTP, but you can see how there's Git, S3, SFTP, web dev. So there's a few options here. What we'll do is actually connect to our server, Filestash server directly, because essentially when you can SSH in, and you can also SFTP in, unless you specifically configure it to not to. So it works as an SFTP server also, but we'll probably create an actual SFTP video where you would actually put users in like a jail to make it so that it's actually secure for SFTP and not just, hey, I'm just going to log in as root and I can do whatever, right? But in this case, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to log in as root into our SFTP server, and we'll just put the IP address in, connect, and now you can see that essentially this is our root directory. So if you were to, log into Filestash, what you would see here is, if you list, there's some like .hidden files, but essentially you see the Docker Compose and the other configuration files. So what you could do here is you can set up a new file called test.txt, which now if I do another ls here, now test.txt, it's there. And you can also edit it. So you can say this is a test file. So in here you can hit save, and then you can see cat text.txt. This is a test file. So you can edit it in the server too and say, oh, this is cool. And then if I were to, I think, reload the page, it should update. So that's how you can essentially use Filestash and hook it up to an SFTP backend, and it essentially would just create files like you would create it on a server and use it. This would be very similar in regards to how you would use it in any other system, whether it was using an NFS mount or if you were using S3 or something else. So you want to need to know how to do it in the underlying system. You just essentially do it here in the browser, create files, and update things that you need to do. So just like a nice user interface for just being able to configure stuff and use that as a backend. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.